It's not Taco Tuesday, but it's Taco Thursday. Reading, Rest is Resistance. Amen. Boy, that book saved me at post-op. That's a good book. My granddaughter is thriving, birds chirping on blast this morning, playing with my 4 cats. That's a lot of cats. My daughter at one time, she had 8 cats. So, ooh, your son came home. That'll bring me joy too. My goodness. Writing your book of meditations on God's grace. That's a beautiful thing. Restarting jogging. Oh, yeah. After you get past the stiffness and the endorphins kick in, that's joyful. Receiving a letter from my granddaughter. Awesome. It was above 32 degrees. Amen. I know that's right. Hashe and amen. I was in Chicago last week. It's cold up there. My goodness. So today we come to this space, living in a time of fragmentation and fatigue and a kind of perma crisis, right? This this extended period of instability and insecurity, especially one resulting from a series of catastrophic events. We've come from pandemic to this mess we're in right now, but some of us have been in the perma crisis all our lives. Generationally, we might have been in a perma crisis if you have black and brown skin. So tonight we gather as a people who are tired and overwhelmed and searching for something, for balance, for hope, and for joy. So I'm going to turn it back over to you, Brian, and we will set the temperature even more.
Yes, shout out to Carver who crafted out this beautiful holiday for us over 100 years ago, along with the community, making us tap into our history and allowing us the space to create new history, which we hope to do tonight. And Reverend, I want to ask, what is something about your own background, your own career, your own personal life that helps you to frame this conversation for us around Black joy? Reverend McLean, why don't you jump in first?
Dr. Ayo can go. I got to go. I have a background as an artist, so my artistry definitely is grounding me in this moment. I performance art. Now I can't draw nothing, but performance art. I have a background in performance art, dance and music, and that has helped to keep me going and to give me hope in this time. And this is how I enter the conversation, even as a pastor who is an artist.
Thank you.
Hello everyone. So so I am too. I have a background in artistry. I am a spoken word artist. Yeah. And I mean, on top of that preacher thing, because that's an art in and of itself. Yeah, what was your question? I'm sorry.
You definitely answered some of it. You know, some of the things about your background that allow you to frame this conversation for us.
Uh, so yeah, I'm gonna stop at the poetry level then. I mean, I'm a hip hop head and I love the fact that, and I don't know how free can I be, Moya? I love the fact that T.I. has a new song out. It brings something out of my soul. Um, and I'm waiting for Jill Scott's album to drop tomorrow. Yeah. Yeah.
And she
Tomorrow.
released a video of her doing the front porch. What is it called? The porch series in DC.
Yeah,
Oh,
Gucci's front porch or whatever. Yeah.
yes. Anyway,
It's beautiful. I love the conversation we're about to get into, and I'm going to pass it back to Reverend Harris to start us off on our dialogue.
Look, I want to dip into some music, but I'll stay focused. I'll stay focused. So first, we're going to talk about just joy beyond strategy and how movements often prioritize strategy, but joy changes what strategy can reach. So I want to know, how do you understand the theology of joy when power is unequal, especially in your multicultural spaces? Your congregation is multicultural, correct?
yes.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about Dr. Ayo, but
Yes. So, Pastor Mia, I want to ask you that first.
how do I understand a theology of joy at a
Yeah,
time?
yeah.
Well, before I even get to joy, I have to start with creativity. So before we even get to joy,
Mhm.
so for me, my theology of creativity is rooted in Genesis 1. And God, in the words of Dr. Will Gaffney, God says, "Out of the womb be chaos." God created out of the womb be. So it wasn't out of nothingness; it was out of chaos that God said, "Let there be."
Mhm.
And then God then ordains us to be co-creators with God when God says, "I am making you in my image. I am making them in my image." And so I believe that we are ordained to the ministry of co-creativity with God. So before we even get to joy, we have to open ourselves up to creativity and imagination. And one of the tools of the empire is to kill our imagination. It is to squash it. It is to make us feel like we can't imagine anything, not even getting to joy yet. We can't imagine a hope for a future. And so part of our strategy then is to continue to be countercultural and to be exercising our imaginations and to be then encouraging others in our community to exercise their imaginations. If we can begin the work of imagination, then we can get to joy. I'll stop there because I want to give Dr. Ayo a chance, but
No,
I start with
exactly.
creativity before
Yeah.
before.
I just want to dig there real quick because
Okay.
I've experienced that too. Because it's like I've taught Bible study and I wanted people to dream about what does heaven look like? What does it smell like? What does it taste like? And they almost felt like it was blasphemous to even imagine that. And I think something happens when we grow up from kids to adults. We stop imagining.
Mm.
So I really, really, really appreciate that. So Dr. Io, what say you?
So I want to co-narrate on the we say piggyback, but we're not animals. I want to co-narrate on that imagination space. Because as I drilled down, um, I got to where we have to have that imagination piece because we're ever reaching toward freedom. And if we've never been there, how do we reach toward something without the imagination piece? So that imagination piece, and then going back into the poetry me, um, and leaning into Audre Lorde's poetry is not a luxury. Um, so the idea, the everything, what comes out of your soul. My thesis work that I did with Dr. Cannon was on the moan of Black folks. Um, and before we had a common language, because we weren't all pulled from the same space. So before we had a common language, we had to, we came together, we created community through this moan piece. And the moan carried us out of, it's even a hum will unlock some things in your soul. So I think I'm jumping too far, too fast. Moya, stop
Look,
me if
just
I am.
go where
But
it tells you to go.
but so that imagination piece helps us connect with that moan that our ancestors had to have to survive. And that moan piece and that hum piece allows us to heal those spaces. And we bring about something as beautiful as music, as yeah. Otis Moss jumped in with some stuff lately, with the Amazing Grace piece. Yeah, but I'm gonna stop so that I don't like monopolize this conversation.
No, you talking about that piece where he's talking about the talking about
Pentatonic
the
sound.
yeah, yeah. And one of my classmates did some research on hooping and where that yeah. That's a whole nother, but
Yeah,
yeah,
where you
yeah.
have Newton, I believe it was, who gets credit for the words to Amazing Grace. And he
Mm-hmm.
was like, yeah, but if you don't have that pentatonic sound that came from the hull of the ship,
Yeah.
if you don't have that pentatonic sound, then you'll have grace, but it won't be amazing. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I'm picking up on this, like even this cross-cultural, cross multicultural hum, right? Because we came across the ocean from different places, and the home is what connected us. So even here in this space where we have so many cultures blending, especially like Pastor Mia, where like that creativity, how do you use that creativity to move towards joy in your multicultural congregation?
Well, I think that it starts with empowerment. So we are empowering the creative genius in the people. We are, some people, they don't need permission, but they have felt stifled. So you need to give them permission to moan, whatever that moan is. Now we're using this metaphorically, but to do whatever that thing is that is connecting them to the deeper parts of themselves that they have forgotten. So then the work becomes rememory, right? Because before you even get to creativity, now I have to remember who I am. I have to remember the self. So that might be probably the biggest creative project. Starts within first, right? How do I remember who I am in a world that has told me to forget? And that goes for all cultures. One of the things that I ask, particularly when I'm working with predominantly white organizations, which I do often in my denomination, I always ask white people, who were you before you were white? Because before you do the work of decolonizing and creativity and trying to reconciliation, racial recon, you need to remember who you are before you take on the identity that even your own people have given you. Who are you? Who are you beyond that? Who are you in spite of that? And so even across cultures, white, black, we have Asian American people in the church. We have all sorts of people. Who are you? Who were you before they told you to forget who you were? And so that's the creative project starts within. Now, once you get to rememory, then you start to pull out the pieces of your authenticity that will then lead you in the direction of hope and imagination. So the work begins with empowerment, and that empowerment journey starts within. Dr. Morton.
Yeah, go for it, Dr.
I don't
Io.
I don't have the same context. So
So in your context, because you come from Black church tradition, you come from Black Baptist tradition.
yeah.
So how, one, how have you dealt with the imagination, and how have you helped folks to remember, like put themselves back together, connect them back to who they were before the middle passage and get to this thing called joy, Black joy? And I'm just letting you know I'm riffing off this isn't on my paper, so I'm sorry.
It's all good. So I am from the Black Negro colored church. Yeah, that's where I'm licensed and ordained. Yeah, I serve in the Black church. So yeah, I have that context, but I'm also a product of two different HBCUs, and I'm a professor at an HBCU. So with everything that I do, all of the spaces that I try and cultivate, I start with a free write. Um, and that's in the vein of Dr. Cannon. But the 15-minute free write where excuse me, I'm inviting you to get your head out of the way, because we tend to become talking heads once we deal with the academy, to get your head out of the way so that I can get to your heart and your gut. So at about minute 7, if you give yourself over to that free write space, something comes up that you didn't even know was in there. So it allows us, in the words of my new friend, Reverend Mia, it allows us to remember. It brings in that rememory. And because we are taking those fragmented pieces, because we were broken on purpose. The crazy piece is, this is my conversation with God all the time. We are broken in places that God allows us to be broken in so that we would have our best shine. But we were broken on purpose to get rid of those spaces. And what I try and do is invite those spaces that the enemy tried to push out back into the conversation without your mind there. So I'm looking for your heart and your gut to be able to piece your soul back together. Did I answer your question, or I can keep going? Because
No, that's good. That's good. So that's like the birthplace of joy. You have to remember, you have to be empowered to be self, right? That's what you said, Dr. Mia. Uh, have you, in witnessing this, are there some examples of how you've helped people to remember and to be able to unearth some joy in your ministries? And if so, how has that shown up?
Yeah, that's good. I'm looking for this quote to make sure I don't misquote Howard Thurman, but Howard Thurman has a quote. Come on, internet. Howard Thurman said, "Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do it, because the world needs people who have come alive." So part of the practice, at least in my context, is planting that seed. So somebody will come to me and they will be, I'm riled up about this, or I'm trying to, this injustice and that thing over there. And I said, what makes you come alive? Let's start there. Before you start, John, I have a wonderful deacon who is out in the streets every week protesting, and she's sort of experiencing burnout. And I said, let's roll it back. I said, what makes you come alive? Let's start there. Okay, because there are some special, unique things within you that perhaps if you can lean into that, it will become the fuel behind your passion and the sustainable force. Because this work that we're doing, the battle of just existing in the empire is exhausting. And so you're going to need to be doing something that makes you come alive. And so then we start to brainstorm that. I want to teach yoga. I want to do a dance. Okay, great. So then I start to almost act as a project manager for people's ideation. That is I enjoy project managing. So, and it's always great when you're project managing somebody else's stuff, not yours. Okay. So it's somebody else's idea and imagination. I then begin to act as sort of a project manager. Well, let's roll this back. You have this vision. Let's start 8 months out. Now, how do we then imagine how we're going to execute this? And to do so in a way that's going to be life-giving and that's going to make you come alive. We have this artist in our church. He does my AV, but he's also a new playwright, and he wrote and produced his first play last year. And so the church went out and supported him, and we were a part of we're part of his like incubation, period in his life as he's figuring out what it means to be a playwright, wanting to tell parts of his story. And so I'm sort of acting as a sponsor and a project manager for people's ideas that they would have never executed elsewhere or felt confident enough to do so. I want to empower that and to keep them going. And I want them to do the work that their soul must have. Dr. Cannon.
Hey, that was good. That's good. All right, Dr. Io, come on. She brought in your cannon.
she did go to my canon. She doesn't know it, but she went to my canon a long time ago because remembering what we never knew was the last thing that she published before she passed away. So you were already there. I don't remember your question.
I don't either. Oh, how have you witnessed joy operating in other people's lives in your ministry? Or how do you help facilitate joy in other people's lives in your ministry?
So I'm teaching a class, the Bible as literature right now. And the unique piece, because at a whole lot of the big universities, people are doing this. They're looking at the Bible as a book. I mean, I believe it is, but that's another story for another day. But the unique piece of this course is we're looking at it through an HBCU lens. So what I had them do initially, the first assignment was to write their own origin story. And all of my students emailed me individually. Well, what is this supposed to look like? I don't know. What does your origin story look like? How am I supposed to frame this? I don't know. What's your favorite frame? How do you want to be framed? So having somebody that is a poet write her story in verse. Having someone who's interested in architecture actually write his out as a blueprint. So you have all of these different people examining their own ways of becoming, the way that it authentically happened. And I watched them as they delivered these stories in class and how they came alive in different ways. It was a beautiful sight. It is one of the things that has brought me the most joy in the last few weeks.
That is so dope.
Did that
Can
answer?
I come sit in your class?
You know, you're always invited in my classroom, but if you come, you know you're gonna do some work.
Oh man,
I'm trying to audit. I'm trying to audit. So let me get my life together.
Right, right. I just, and I just got to chill thinking about all of this, how it's just all connecting. So I want to shift a little bit because what, where have you seen Black joy misunderstood or minimized? And what was at stake in that misunderstanding? Where have you seen Black joy misunderstood and minimized? And what was at stake in that misunderstanding? What was lost when the joy was flattened or co-opted? Or I'm gonna be quiet.
I'll go first this time. I got you. This was probably, it might have been 20 years ago now. Wow, that means that these kids are like grown with families now. But I was standing in the parking lot of my church with a group of teenagers, and this guy turned on instrumentals that he had on a CD in his car. That tells you how long ago it was. And we started to freestyle after Bible study one night, started to freestyle in the parking lot. This woman comes up that's a member of the church, one of our seasoned saints. She comes over and she says, "This looks awful for the church." And I'm like, oh my God, this is them expressing themselves, all of what they just took in. They are using their art. They're using their art to talk about God. And if you had just taken a second to hear what they had to say, oh my God. And she was like, yeah, you all can't do that right here. And I said, we can't do what? She said, it sounds like you're listening to rap music in the church parking lot. And I said, and that's a problem because what? Let's deal, because it's very Western of you to ask them first to turn their music off, but second to assume that the sacred can't sit here. And they are finding joy in having studied the word that y'all push them toward all the time. So it was misunderstood. And then she proceeded to tell us to get out of the parking lot. So yeah, just watching the breakdown of all of the teenagers in that moment, and I was like, don't you dare change. But yeah, that's the first example that came up. I have several, but that was the
That
first one.
breaks my heart, that whole sacred, secular, false dichotomy.
Right.
Yeah. We could talk about that all day. Dr. Mia, what you got?
Yeah. On that note, it's almost as if joy is only okay if it falls within a certain kind of respectability politic. Yeah, right. So in this, well, I don't know the case that happened because you were there, but from what you told us, it would have been okay if it fell within a certain framework. So we find ourselves even within our own community surveilling Black joy. So it's not always somebody outside of the racial or gender makeup who is surveilling or policing Black joy. One of the things that I was chuckling when you first asked this question, Reverend Moya, because I remember when Wed and Fanzat first got popular, and and the people, the boots on the ground, and the people were like, "Look at these! The world is on fire, and these Black people are out here just dancing, and they're not paying attention to the news." I said, "Who says you can't do both?" Okay, because I'm watching the news, and I voted, and I'm doing my Wedham fans that because it's fun. Can we have some fun? I mean, if the world is on fire, we might as well dance. I mean, what is Alice Walker's book, Hard Times Require Furious Dancing? If the world is on fire, we might as well dance through it. Okay, so but people were being so facetious and judgy about those moments. You know, all the videos going viral on TikTok and Instagram of Black folk dancing and having a good time with their cow person hats on and their boots on. Sometimes it can feel like in these times of immense crisis, we can just suck the wonder and the joy out of things. And I think that's people of all ages, races, socioeconomic statuses, political affiliations, etc. So that I was laughing at that because last summer was fun with our fans. I had a good time.
Yeah, and it's like, like I just wrote about this actually last week in our newsletter about dancing our way out of our constrictions, right? Like, when's the last time we broke into a sweat? And because I remember in college, I would wear a hat because I knew I was gonna sweat my perm out. Because I was dancing my way, because we in nursing school, times was hard. But we should be able to do both and, right? And the idea of flattening or negating someone's joy because you don't know how to figure out how to be joyful yourself, that just makes me angry. Because I think about I think about how many times young people are told that they are out of order when they're just trying to have fun in a world that deems them as, like, kids are already being made to grow up faster because of all the things in the world. We're always growing up faster than anyone else. Yet we can't have and still have joy. So I'm gonna ask my colleague Brian to jump in here because
Yeah.
we could go for hours
And
talking
I
about.
love it. I could sit here and listen for hours. Like I think about, again, it's like traditional Black joy. Like I think about Mardi Gras and like y'all named it, right? Like these secular and spiritual spaces. I think about Carnival. I think about, of course, the Black church. And like these are also spaces where like the slavery routes were planned and the civil rights movement took place, right? And so what does it look like if we had one without the other, right? If we just had the strategy, would it work? If we just had the Black joy, y'all kind of talked about it. So like what does Black joy offer us that strategy alone doesn't?
I'll just comment on the Mardi Gras thing because I'm from New Orleans, so I love to get down. I as a kid, Mardi Gras was natural. We had a whole week off from school, all kind of stuff. It wasn't until I moved away that I realized the rest of the country was not partying. I said, "What is everybody else doing?" And people were looking like, "Why? How can those people, especially after Hurricane Katrina, they were like, how can those people just go back and dance in the street and party after they lost everything?" And we were so happy to be back, even though we lost everything, that was just an overflow of our gratitude. As June Jordan said, some of us did not die. And for those of us who did not die, we were just so happy to be back and dancing in the streets. And there were people who could not understand our joy. They could, and I think about second lining culture, especially when you're coming back from burying somebody. We break out. So on the way to burying somebody in New Orleans, you have a funeral dirge. They're a very slow, kind of draggy song. Once they put you in the casket of the mausoleum, then the party breaks out and people are dancing through the streets. And there are folks who don't understand. How could you be dancing How could you be, shucking and jiving after you just put your loved one in the ground or in the wall? And I don't think most folks really understand that we are, human beings with a wide variety of emotionality and expression, and we need to dance after that. There's something cathartic about the dancing and about the music after this happens. So that's my minor reflection on Mardi Gras. Because it is next Tuesday, so laissez les bon temps rouler. All right, I'm a punt over to.
So I love it. I love it. I love it. Yeah. Y'all probably don't want us to be in conversation. But so my friend Dr. Allison Geist Johnson talks about, and I know I'm gonna mess these words up because I am not a scientist. All right, before I even start in, but she talks about the centrifugal force and the centrifugal force. How you have the movement that has to take place here in the natural that will wax to close the space between the earth realm and the heavenlies. um in order for you to have that euphoric space, in order for you to be able to heal those painful spaces. So there is a waxing that happens when there is movement happening. If you're standing still and you're using, I keep going back to this, but you're using nothing but your head, then you can only get so far. It is a divide that you are closing as your body is moving. So we have those ring shouts after the blues moan because we are closing the gap between the earthly and the heavenly realm. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fire. Thank you. And um, I'm thinking about like with every generation, this probably exists, right? Like where some elders uh, will say that something's lost in this moment, right? That maybe tradition isn't being passed down, that we don't have the same soul in the music or the same joy in our step. Do you think that's true? Do you think anything has changed, especially like in the last 5 years after the pandemic or within the last generation? Or is it just a new iteration of Black joy that we need to lean into?
I don't believe there's anything new under the sun, and I don't think that we have lost anything. I don't. We just have to be able to understand each other. In the words of Dean Kenny, that into me see. So we actually have to sit down and shut up and let the young people talk and express themselves in the way that they express themselves so that we can understand where they are and where they need the wisdom from the elders. I just put myself in a space of an elder. What is happening? But
Well,
but I'm just saying, God, can I get my gray? Can I get my Tony? So that it will my outsides will match my insides. I'm just saying. Um but I don't think that we've lost anything. I just think we haven't talked to each other. So there is a break in the communication, or the understanding of each other. I don't think we've lost anything. They just we have to be able to talk to each other so that it will continue to grow as opposed to something dying off or having to repeat some things. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you. How about you, Reverend Mia? Or, and have we lost it? Is it still present? How do you see it show up today?
I would have to agree that I don't think we've lost it. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is wasted. It might not be the most popular thing, right? So if you are looking at pop culture to be the indicator of sort of the joy, the type of joy that we are talking about, then maybe you're going to feel like we lost it. But pop culture was never the representation for the work that was happening in the Hush Harbor. It was never the indicator of all the inner workings that were happening behind the scenes in somebody grandmama house after church. It was never the indicator. So if you're looking at that, well, sure, it can seem like, oh, these kids can't sing no more because, they wasn't in the church choir. Well, actually, there's a lot of people who are still rooted in some kind of ethical community that has practices and they are passing those things on. I think sometimes we're simply looking in the wrong direction as a point of indication. So that's what I will say. I think it's still there.
Beautiful. Reverend Harris, can I pop it back to you? Maybe we can do some engagement of our audience. I see some questions starting to come through.
Yeah. And I heard that rhetorical theory coming out of there, like the communication. Both of us have studied rhetoric, and that's just how, yeah, I heard that. But let's go to the questions. One that was in the Q&A, and if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A so we can pull them out. The question is, why is authenticity often mistaken for disobedience, outspokenness, and now too woke? People have a problem being authentically themselves. Authenticity gives way to joy. Who would like to address that first? Why is authenticity? I'm gonna keep my mouth shut because I got some thoughts too.
So this leans way into my work, right? As far as
Yeah.
the whole blues women who are excommunicated from the Black church, blues women for whatever reason, being excommunicated from the Black church, and how do we still speak to their souls? So there's that piece. But before I get all the way in there, this morning, there was a woman who came to speak to us about our professional presence, and there I sat because y'all got me straight from work. There I sat with my name in my earrings and these bracelets, who I am. And she was like, yeah, statement pieces, maybe one, and it shouldn't be overstated. And yeah, so I guess who I show up as, I made apologies for a long time because I am a poet, a preacher, and a professor. I made apologies for a long time. And now I'm Io wherever I go, because if you can't take what I look like on the outside, once I open my mouth, you're really not going to be able to take me. So, but I think not understanding or not loving self causes other people to force people into a box that that yeah was they were never meant to live in the first place. So I think that comes from a self thing before it's ever on the outside. Did I answer that question? I'm so sorry.
Yes, I think you did.
It's
Yeah.
so many more spaces I wanted to walk into with the narrative of civility from Kelly Brown Douglas, all of that. But I'm a back up.
Can I jump in and you can go revisit that? Because I want to hear more. Something you said caught my mind. Um, I think that the work of white supremacy, which is an imperial project, is the work of homogeneity to get everybody to be alike and to do all the things to stay in a box, right? So it is countercultural to be your most authentic self because that means that you are divesting from the imperial project. You are divesting from the box. You're living your life in a way that is countercultural to the empire. And so, however that looks, maybe gender, sexuality, the way we present ourselves all falls into that category. And so, when you were telling that story, I was like, oh my goodness. Because now we're back into this respectability politic thing. And so I'm curious, actually. I do want to hear you, something you said about civility then is perking my ears up. I want to hear something about that. So if you don't mind going in that door.
Gladly. I love talking about this. So Kelly Brown Douglas poses that's in Black Bodies in the Black Church. Yeah, but my whole idea of blues women hinges off of her statement about blues bodies. Now, what blues bodies are, because of the time period after emancipation, where the church moves from the invisible institution to I'm sorry, the Black church moves from the invisible institution above ground. You have the elite who are trying to level the playing field for Black people. So in trying to level the playing field, it's coming from a genuine space. In trying to level the playing field, they're showing that Black people are like everybody else. But in that, because they're saying Black people are like everyone else, anything that's authentically Black or African is asked to be suppressed. It's asked to be moved off of the table totally. So those people who either can't or won't fit into that narrative, they become blues bodies, because blues was the secular music during that time, the most popular secular music during that time. So it puts blues in contrast to the church. So that's the whole narrative of civility piece. It came out of a genuine space, but it cut a whole lot of us out and then cut our culture up. Yeah. So not only are you Black now, but you're Black and blue. Yeah.
Wow, wow. And it makes me even think about like in the AME church, when the church left the Methodist Episcopal Church, it was like this shadow democracy trying to mimic what white folks did in the polity of the church and then the government. And then that space becomes oppressive, especially for women. And because they try to mimic what others are doing, and that's not for us. You know, just because other people did it doesn't mean we have to do it. Anyway, just another question, y'all. Um, it says here, and thank you, Tony, for putting this in. What would it look like for elders and younger generations to be in shared stewardship of Black joy as resistance, rather than in conflict over who gets to define what serious resistance looks like? What would it look like for a cross-generational shared stewardship of Black joy as resistance? What would it look like?
I would say I speak from DC only, that there are a few organizations that are seriously attempting this. And it has its, you have your moments of friction, but Harriet's Dreams is one of them. And then there's another organization that I was doing some work with around the time that the National Guard was deployed or sent here, to protect children. And they had people on the call who were actual board members who were 18 and 19 years old, which is like very, very rare and unheard of. So there are organizations who are attempting this. It requires us to give over our power. And I say us now because now that I'm almost 40, I may not be as old as some people, but I still should not be the youngest person in the room. And in many spaces that I am, which is a problem. So a lot of people they haven't figured it out yet, because if I'm still the youngest person in the room, we have a problem, right? So it requires us to give over power. And I, that's a lot. That's hard. That's hard for many people in many institutions who have been used to putting certain um, rules and regulations in place that determine who even gets to be in power in the first place. So now you're having to walk back on some of the rules that you put in place. So you got to have a bachelor's degree. Well, if we really want to have an exchange, a 16-year-old is not going to have that most likely. So we're going to have to renegotiate, and dismantle some of these things that we have adopted because we thought that they were important at a time. if we're going to really foster intergenerational conversation and stewardship of resources.
That's good. And we've seen that from generation to generation to generation. Dr. Io, you have any response to that one?
I was just gonna say word.
Yeah, we have to learn how
Yeah.
to pass the baton. We don't do that well. And
So
part
so
of
I
that,
do want to say something else.
go ahead,
Yeah,
go.
because we have to pass the baton and believe that we've done the job that we were supposed to do, and give them space to fumble. Because I mean, with younger people and older people, giving them the space to jack it all the way up. You know how my mouth is. I'm working on it. But to mess it all the way up and say, okay, where did this fall apart? Let's look at this thing and see how we can get this back on the rails. But I like what you did right here, and that's introducing new thought to the space. So being able to prepare people for that space, I think it would create a version of what I see as heaven.
And
Yeah,
allow them to cultivate joy on their own terms instead
absolutely.
of our version of, old school hip hop, and they listen to something else. Their joy is different. We just need to go over into our place and have our joy. I
Right.
mean, you might like the new stuff. I just listen to my stuff and I let them have their joy. Anyway, Brian, I'm gonna go ahead. What you gonna say?
I was just gonna say, the space that we had out in Tennessee, at the Alex Haley farm,
Mm-hmm.
um, where we were sitting in the lobby listening to go-go music. And it was a Black joy moment that none of us knew that we needed. I left that space and I was like, man, I could take over the world now. And I mean, we were various ages, and people dropped into the conversation, pulled out, went, got food, came back, all of those things, but it was space that was safe for, yeah, across generations. It was good. It was beautiful space.
Yeah.
Unexpected. So it wasn't strategic. I'm just saying.
Ah, okay.
Mhm.
Okay. I'm throwing it back to you, Brian.
Yeah, I mean, you started it up, Reverend Doctor, but I'm curious about, as we kind of bring things to a close, some of the things that you're able to do to pour into yourself, or how does the community pour into you to allow you to remain joyful?
I guess I'll go. So I'm a songwriter, and I have this couple at the church who they follow me on social media, and they hear me talking about I got to get back to the studio more, but it's too expensive. So sometimes they will donate money for me to for me to go to the studio because they know that I need that. They know that I need that alongside pastoring and preaching and budgeting and all the stuff that comes along, right? And so there is something special about feeling like your imagination is cared for. And so I hope to provide that for other people, but it has been really nice when some of those same people have also provided that for me, because my art is a form of my self-care, and they know that I need to exercise that muscle regularly enough so that I can stay sane and I won't punch anybody out. Amen. In the streets or in the church, because I come close sometimes. So so we need it. They know that that's my joy, right? And I need it, so they're willing to contribute to make sure that I have those moments.
Ooh, I am trying to figure out exactly how to word what I'm thinking. I will say one of the things that comes to mind, with being poured back into where I'm sitting right now. I'm at at my friend's house. And I come here. It's a safe reprieve for me. This is not my house. This ain't mine. My art ain't this good, y'all. But it's a safe reprieve for me. Both of us like to cook, so we have conversation around food, around all of those things, art, music, movies. She's a playwright, so she gets where she's an award-winning playwright. So let me say her name. Her name is Dr. Gabrielle D. Pina. So I'm gonna talk about her. I'm gonna talk about her husband too, because this is his space as well. Who is because he got his hand in the air like, yeah, don't forget me. Dr. William A. Hobbs. But they provide space for me to just be Io. So I have to be on in every space that I walk into. They give me space where if I want to walk around, well, I ain't gonna walk around naked because around her husband. But they give me space to just be Io. There's no expectation, there's nothing there. And it's always a great conversation and a great meal in this house. Yeah. So those things pour back in for me.
It's beautiful. Thank you. And hopefully, I mean, us being here together, we're able to find ways to pour into each other even after today. If y'all have a few more minutes, I would love to just be in a space of gratitude to thank y'all for joining us for this conversation, for being so brilliant and for glowing throughout the conversation and the talk. I know we want to share a few more things with the audience, some tools, some future events. And Reverend Harris, maybe before we get into all of that, we can just check to see where folks are again with the Lenten
Yeah.
meeting.
Yeah, and also if our guests, if they have social media or Substack to connect, for people can connect with you, they're asking for that. If you can put it in the chat while I get this up, because people want to hear what y'all got to say. All right. All right, we're gonna go back to, let me see if I can get this to work. Uh-oh. I don't know if I can do it, Brian. All right, how about this? Y'all put y'all's numbers in the chat. How about that? 0 means you ain't feeling good. 10 means you're feeling great.
How y'all feeling? Let us know.
Yeah, how y'all feeling? And while y'all are doing that, we're also going to put in the chat, after y'all do that round of numbers, a link to our upcoming events. We have things that go on monthly and every other month. Next week, next Thursday, we are doing Octavia Told Us. It's the last session of Parable of the Sower conversation. So we're closing out the book and we're going to see how that book can help us to survive this mess that we're in right now. Next month, on the second Tuesday, we have Engage and Adapt, where we have conversations about how we engage in what's going on in the world and then adapt in our lives to help to make the community safer, better, what God intends. But I'm going to put the link in the chat so you can register for those. All these events, we also have some nonviolent, nonviolent. Brian, what do we have?
Nonviolence resistance trainings
Yeah,
for
thank you. I couldn't get
folks
the
who want to be on the streets with us and demonstrate through this moment. Just gain some skills and develop further, community with folks who are interested in taking action in cities across the country.
Awesome.
We should also share next Wednesday starts a holy season for Christians with Ash Wednesday. And if you're interested in joining us for an evening prayer vigil, we'll be hosting one along with multiple other organizations and Christians across the country at 8 o'clock. And that information is also available via the link. We would love to pray with you to start off the season.
Awesome.
Yep.
Thank you. Well, thank you to the both of you. I could talk to y'all like regularly, and we can have some good conversations. I just thank you for your genius and the joy that exudes from your spirits, just even across Zoom. And Brian, you always exude joy in all the things that you do. So I'm just grateful for this opportunity. And yeah, where's the Fat Tuesday party in the DMV?
I don't know, but I might have to throw one since the people are asking.
Some gumbo. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna have king cake at we're gonna have a king cake at Sojourners on Tuesday. We're having our own thing. But but we need a second line. We need something. Yeah. And thank you to Courtney Brooks, who is
Goodness.
our extraordinaire. She just does all the things to make sure that we can do what we're doing on the front end. So thank you, Courtney. And I think that's it. We're at time, right?
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much.
This has been great, y'all. Y'all go in peace and go to
Peace.
serve the world and make it what God intends.
Yes, and remain
And
joyful.